Hey, everybody. I'm here with my dear friend Tim Pierce, talking about the tragic news about Jeff Beck. Just to read from his Twitter before we started, on behalf of his family, it is with deep and profound sadness that we share the news of Jeff Beck's passing. After suddenly contracting bacterial meningitis, he peacefully passed away yesterday. His family asked for privacy while they process this tremendous loss. Um, so I'm hazy on this, Tim. Last night we hung out and we had heard this, and Tim and I had heard this last night, and but then we didn't know if it was true or not. We won't say where we heard it from. And then today again, I checked. I'm in Los Angeles right now. I just interviewed Steve Lukather today, who has played with Jeff many times, um, and I'm just stunned, Tim.
Yeah, I felt the brunt of it last night, to be honest, because we have a dear friend who's very much an insider who gave us that news. And I thought, how can this be wrong? But then it was not in the news. And then I
Oh,
looked this morning and somebody had said it was a hoax this morning. And then I got the word about an hour ago from a friend who sent me a Variety magazine obituary. So I knew. Um, I felt bad last night. I feel worse today. It's hitting me worse than a lot of other passings. Um, he just seemed so healthy. He was so healthy. It seems like a fluke, a
yeah.
random, bacterial meningitis. Just an unlucky event in a person's life. He was very influential to me. And I saw him play live several times. All of us did. We all went
Yeah.
to. I saw him recently live.
Yeah.
Some
I just made
event.
a
It was.
video about him, about seeing him live 2 months ago. Uh, and
Yeah.
I got to meet him at the show, and
Remember.
briefly, and I'm just in shock. When we talked about this last night, and then because we couldn't confirm it anywhere, even though we heard from someone inside, um, I just then we kind of talked ourselves out of it. That okay, well, this can't be true.
Well, I was frankly very relieved that it actually hadn't happened. It's the last thing I wanted to happen. It's you know,
I don't know why I'm more stunned by this. Jeff was 78 years old. He was a very healthy guy. He was a vegetarian for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. I don't even know. But
yeah.
uh, he was in top form playing
I
two
know.
months when I saw him two
I
months
know.
ago. Just I
Yeah.
made this video about him. I couldn't believe how
Yeah.
great he's playing still. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He always had the same level of virtuosity. It never faltered.
Yeah.
I mean, the very early. I used to play a Yardbirds song that he created, and then I was a big fan of the Max Middleton era, with the piano and
Yes.
all of those records, and then of course when Blow by Blow came out, it
Oh,
changed all of our lives. And I was playing Freeway Jam and Cause We've Ended as Lovers, attempting to play,
I,
attempting to play
right.
Cause We've Ended as Lovers.
That's the thing, is that Jeff Beck, my video was why Jeff Beck is uncopyable.
Yeah,
You can
completely.
do some certain nuances of Jeff, whammy bar things, whatever. There's his melodic sense. Oh, every note is a different volume. Every note has a different attack, a different envelope. The
Yeah.
ends of the notes always were in the right spots. Oh my god, it just
I did one record. I told you some of this before. I did a Roger Waters record, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, and Jeff Beck was the other guitar player on it. One of the other guitar players. There may have been three of us. Anyway, Jeff played lead on a song, and my wife was so pleased about this lead part she heard. And when I told her it was Jeff Beck, she was kind of mad at me because it was pretty amazing. It's a song called "What God Wants," and the story is he walked into the studio, and he had just bought a guitar. He didn't bring a guitar. He just bought a guitar. He pulled it out of his trunk, pulled it out of the box, pulled it out of the case, basically bent it in tune with his hands. I mean, the legend grows,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he had that much ability where he could actually just grab any guitar off the wall anywhere and be Jeff Beck and be 110% Jeff Beck. And the lead part on this song is one of the most powerful lead. You should check it out. You should check it out. It's called "What God Wants." And anyway, that was as close to as I ever got to him. I got to share a song with him on separate occasions, but he had that reputation for being able to pull his sounds out of an instrument just with his hands.
When I went to see him, my dear friend Dave Natal has been his front of house guy for years and years, and Dave invited me to the show, and I talked about this in my video that I went on stage after sound check. I watched the sound check, and he played it as if it's the gig. Every note, he finished the songs. He didn't stop in the middle of it and say, "Okay, well, we'll pick it up here." No, he went right to the end. And then I went on stage and I met Sean, his monitor engineer, and I looked at his gear, and then all of a sudden he walked out on stage, and I was stunned. And he said, "How's my guitar sound?" I got introduced, and "How's my guitar sound?" He said to all of us, "Is the front amp better or the back amp?" And then I was standing on stage, and he started playing again, and I was just, even being that close to him, you still can't. It's like, where do those notes come from? I'm looking at him, and I still can't even tell.
Yeah, he was the best example in the world of the tone coming from the person and the hands, because it
Yeah.
truly didn't matter. And he was never precious about gear. You'd see him on tour and there'd be JCM 900s or whatever in the back, maybe two pedals, and the next time it'd be something different. And
Yes.
because it all came from his hands. He was the best example of that. Absolutely.
He went out. So after he came out and tried the guitar and he listened to it again, it says after sound check, then he went back to the bus and he brought his practice amp out, his little Marshall mini practice amp. And he said, "Can I try this out?" And they mic'd it up, and it sounded just like Jeff Beck. It didn't matter that it was only this big. And he said, "If I could just take the delay off this." Now, I knew how to do that, but I wasn't going to say, "Oh, Jeff, hey, I'll show you how to take the delay off." I just stood there in silence. And then he said, "Okay, well, I'll, okay, well, try it another time or something." And then he played through his rig, which sounded phenomenal. It was a JMP and a JSAM 800. He had two of them. Right. He had two 212 combos and two half stacks with that were facing backwards, and both were mic'd. But they were using the JCM 800s actually at the show.
Yeah. Case in point. Yeah. Just whatever gear was available at whatever time. I love the reputation he had for just grabbing a guitar off the music store wall and turning it into the best thing you've ever heard. He also was at the cutting edge with technology, because like with Jan Hammer and then the producers who did the records after that, they were very keyboard oriented. And then the guitar would be like the icing on the cake. So he always embraced kind of what the newest technology was. I always respected him for that. And then I think he was a car nut, right? He just loved to work on old hot rods. Is that right? Am I correct in that?
He did. Yeah. He had a garage. Yeah. He had a lot of hot rods, and
and
he loved to talk about that apparently. And I mean,
so what it is an example of a life in music, which a life in music is a lot of things. It's not just the music. It's other hobbies. It's something that lasts decades and not just 5 years. He's a great example of that. And near the end, he was just Jeff Beck. He wasn't trying to be on the radio or trying to have hits or anything. He was just Jeff Beck filling rooms everywhere he went.
Yeah, this this was an audience of honestly all different age people too, Tim. That people, young people, revere Jeff Beck as much as people our age that grew up with him.
Yeah.
And I'm just last night when we heard this, we
I was very troubled. I was
me
very
too.
troubled.
Me too. And I woke up today and I searched through everything and I didn't see it. And I
And
thought,
I was relieved.
did I drink it? Did I dream
Yeah.
it? Did
Yeah.
I what?
Well, and
I was relieved. Yeah.
here's why, one of the reasons that it's so jarring and so such a loss is that he was the hero that is just ahead of us. He's just ahead of
Yes.
us. I mean, it's too close. It's
Yeah.
just too close. That's part of it. It's not fair. It's just not fair. And so much beautiful music, These days I have this expectation that people will live till 90, 95, and I'm just so sorry he's gone, and we won't be hearing his hand. We'll be hearing his hands forever, but that he won't be showing up in rooms and stadiums and venues, theaters with those amazing hands.
Yeah, my phone, it just started blowing up because once again, there was nothing out there. So I thought, and you and I texted each other today that this must have been this was a hoax or something. That
The only thing I read online this morning was that there was a hoax. There was
yes,
one article on Wikipedia that, and I was frankly relieved. It was like, thank you.
Yes.
And then, a couple of hours ago, I got a link to variety.com, and then it just started pouring in. The press started pouring in.
I always felt like Jeff Beck, I don't want to say it like this, didn't get his due because of that it's not like Jeff Beck wasn't a renowned legend, but and not to compare him to any other guitar players, but if it's possible, was Jeff Beck even and
well, I see where you're going with this. What it is
I don't want to
this.
disrespect anyone else.
No. What it is Jimmy Page was in Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin did Stairway to Heaven. Okay.
Yeah.
Pete Townsend is in the Who, and the Who did, Quadrophenia. Okay. And Eric Clapton was in Cream, and they did Sunshine of Your Love. So contextually, and this is stuff we talk about all the time, there's nothing more powerful than the greatest rock song. Okay. And these guys were able to stay in the pressure cookers of bands with singers, and they are pressure cookers. And I think Jeff, in his early days, realized he could do it on his own. And I remember how successful he was with Blow by Blow. And what was the one that followed?
Wired.
Yeah, Wired.
Yeah.
There was no greater success than that at that time.
No, it's the 70s, top of the world for an
so all you're saying is over the course of history, there are more people listening to Stairway to Heaven than listening to Blow by Blow because the song has more staying power through the decades. That's all it is.
Right.
It's just whatever vehicle you're riding in or riding on. He did not have the vehicle of Led Zeppelin or the vehicle of the Who or the vehicle of Cream or the vehicle of U2. He was his own thing. And that's one of the things we love about him is he was an outlaw. You could tell he didn't take guff from anybody.
Right.
You could tell. And you maybe heard some stories about that. Like maybe he and Rod Stewart were going to work together and Jeff said, nah, it's too much on your terms. I'm not going to do it. You hear those kind of stories or whatever. So I think at a certain point what were those records called with Max Middleton? I'm not thinking of what was it Truth? Was that one of the records? Oh, the Jeff Beck Group. That's what it was. It was simply called the Jeff Beck Group. And man, those records I just loved those records. And I think even at that point, he was getting big record deals, and he was you know, he was getting his due. He always did get his due, but it's just a different level when you're not in the band that made Stairway to Heaven. That's all.
Right.
That's all.
The record Truth that you said, that was from 68.
That's earlier then. Yeah.
It is, which is a phenomenally good record.
Yeah.
I love that record.
Me too.
Yeah, so Blow by Blow 75, Wired 76, and then with Jan Hammer in 77. I mean, do you just, is it weird that you think these people are going to live forever? Is that a strange, is
I
that
really
wrong
want them
of us
to
expect that, Tim? I mean,
it's one of the ways that we just get through the day. I think, we want, I just never, and that's part of what the shock of it is you start to realize, oh, none of us last forever, and he was just ahead of us. He's just ahead of us. And we have friends that age, and we have other heroes that age and older, and I'm not even going to say it because it's the human condition, and that's what makes it so. That's what makes you lose your breath and your legs weak. We are only on this earth for a short time, and he was just ahead of us, and he was so healthy and so amazing, and he never faltered, and he was always as good as he was the last time, and the time before, and the time before that.
Yeah, I've seen Jeff play in the past, and I don't know what I expected when I saw him, a couple months ago. 78-year-old Jeff Beck. What's he sound like? He sounds like 28-year-old Jeff Beck.
And not only that, looks like 28-year-old Jeff Beck.
28-year-old Jeff Beck, right? That's the thing
that's how you want to be. That's how I want to be at 78 and 88. It's like, it's not fair. It's not right.
Over to his guitars. They were in the rack. He had 4 Strats, 2 with reverse headstocks. I mean, one that was I think one that was a baritone. And I looked at him, and I looked at the action. I looked at the height of the whammy bar, and I don't know what I expected, Tim. If I expected magical powers to spring off them or something, or them to go levitate in front of me, and I just was looking at them and just, these are the things that he gives but they were just regular guitars, but you put them in his hand and this miraculous sound came out.
Not only was it the left hand, but the right hand, and not using a pick, and all the tone you get from the pads of the fingers. And then, he would bend a harmonic totally in tune with the wang bar, and he would do a melody with the wang bar, just, and that was like, how do you do that?
Right.
Just beautiful. And always short phrases with space in between the phrases.
Yeah. Oh my God, his phrasing.
Like a jazz musician in that regard, or like Miles Davis or something, just, events and bursts. You never got a run-on sentence with him, ever.
No, he played some flourishes that were just take your breath away, honestly. Yeah. Just
that's a good word for it.
Yeah, his chops, he'd play these beautiful phrases, phrase after phrase after phrase, developing ideas. And then he would put in a flourish that, wow. And I just kept thinking, how can you play this melodically all the time? How can you? And I thought of the millions of nuances in just one evening of watching him play. It just, every vibrato, every note, every attack, they were all different. They had different envelopes. They had
that's the kind of guitar we love. I mean, guitar has changed in a lot of ways, and the kind of guitar that we love is more melodic. It's simpler, but not simple at all, in the fact that there's nuance. The touch and tone are slightly different every time out, and the unexpected happens a lot, and there's a lot of space. It's a different tradition than a wall of sound or a wall of 64th notes or whatever, which a lot of guitar players get caught up in today. It's the older, the other aesthetic, and that's one of the things that we love about it. But yeah, it was all in his hands, and it's just it's jarring. It's going to be a hard one to recover from. It really is. Oh, and the other thing he would do, like Miles Davis, he always featured the people in the band.
Yes, he did. That's
Huge
we would
solos.
be remiss. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
and young people,
Absolutely.
female players in his band. His drummer, is it Annika, who's a fabulous drummer that was playing with him this last time.
Well, and Tal was playing with him, Tal
Yeah,
Wilkenfeld, and then I saw Rhonda Smith do like a 20-minute solo on stage with him. It was just wonderful. He always featured everybody in the band, and
yeah.
that's a very generous thing.
And he was so gracious on stage featuring the other people. That meant so much to him that you can just tell.
Yeah.
Man,
Well, I wish there were more like him, but there's not a single person like him. We could use more like Jeff, we really could.
Well, in case people are wondering why I'm in Los Angeles, you can see it out there. Tim and I made a video together yesterday, and I interviewed Steve Lukather a couple hours ago, and we talked about this, Steve and I, that we didn't know that this was true. We said it was a hoax, and we thought it was a hoax, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting here and my phone just starts going crazy, just text after text after text from all of my friends.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing good about it. There's just nothing good about it. It's just the only thing good is the acceptance to savor every minute and value everybody, because we are not here for very long, and there's some other amazing people just ahead of us, and I just hope we all go well into our 90s. That's all. It's too quick. It was too soon.
It was too soon, and what we feared.
Yeah, I was a little more prepared for it today, because I already experienced so much discomfort last night when I first heard. It was like it was horrible. Actually,
I couldn't breathe when I heard
yeah,
it.
exactly. We got the text from the same person at the same time last night.
Yeah,
and it was because of the source. It was totally credible, and it was like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And then when I got the news today, and in some ways I was more prepared for it, but now it's going to be a little bit of some weeks of acceptance and agony.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got to spend the day with Steve, and I'm glad you were with fellow travelers when you found out.
Well, it was thank you for doing this with me, Tim, and I will see you.
Thank you, Rick, because it wasn't the right thing for me to do one of these on my channel, because I didn't know Jeff, and it wouldn't have been right for me, and this is perfect for me to honor him for a few minutes with you. So I'm grateful.
Thanks, everybody out there. Appreciate it. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for being here.
Bye, everybody.